'99 Total Granada Dakar Rally. A grueling race of speed and endurance, proudly sponsored by Total Coach Lubricant.
Well, it was a quiet start to the 21st Dakar Rally. Granada in southern Spain providing the glorious backdrop. This, the calm before the storm, in more ways than one. The prologue completes, and this was supposed to be the first stage. A cruise along the Spanish coast, an entree for the field, if you like. 115-kilometer special was planned. Sadly, it was washed away. The heavens opened overnight, and the new year ushered in with a downpour. So, same again, thank you. Stage one, a rerun of the prologue course.
Bon année, omedetou gozaimasu. Happy New Year. Meilleurs vœux. Buen año para todos. Feliz año 1999.
So happy New Year to one and all. The dampness of the prologue repeated for stage one. Many were not happy at all. They wanted to get to Africa, to real racing as they call it, but everyone taking it very seriously indeed. Troubles aplenty, the crowd cheering, and the Spanish did well, and the foreigners not so well. Von Zitzewitz was to win on the bikes, the cars taken by Prieto. Well, the trucks weren't allowed to complete that prologue course. They would have to wait another day. Stage two in Africa proper. The liaison to Rabat over the water. We were in Africa at long last. So stage two, a 100-kilometer special. Heading south along the Moroccan coast, near to it, to Agadir. The Dakar finally reaching the continent of its destination. Yes, the Dakar, appreciated by so many, right along the route, and time at last to open up the throttle, push the accelerator, and burst for the horizon. Yes, it wasn't just to be all about KTM. BMW were up there as well, making their mark. And indeed, the Mitsubishis weren't having it all their own way either. The Nissans and the Schlessermobile there as well. Kenny Gardner on the KTM. Their marketing director throwing down the gauntlet, and indeed victory for him on this first proper stage. All the others playing catch-up. Well, Richard Sykes acknowledged that the BMW team was a small one. He said, but every single one of the 4 pro riders were very special indeed, and so it proved for him as well. Kindergarten first ahead of Roma and Fasola. 4th on the day. Well, where there are 2 wheels, there are, of course, 4 in the Dakar. The cars, ever so important, as are the trucks. Spectator. Well, wet conditions overnight made for a damp start. Jean-Pierre Fontenay looking very good indeed, cool and relaxed, finishing ahead of Shinazuka. Vieto was 3rd on the day, Matsuoka 4th in front of Serbia. Yes, the dry conditions, when they came, started to cause problems. Punctures began, and indeed that's to be a feature of the race soon after. Well, another feature, of course, seen so often at the front, the Schlessermobiles, the buggies, the engine slung over the back, perfect traction on a tough terrain. And the monoliths, the Tatras, the Kamaz, Iveco, Mercedes, all there. Desperate to start real race conditions after they've been stopped from taking part in the prologue and stage 1. So Agadir then, onwards, southwards. 230 kilometres of special. The liaison finally at Tantan. Well, this, they said, was the real start of the Dakar. A tough course ahead of everyone, and the bikers were to find out all about it very soon indeed. Well, tumbles there were, mechanical problems and physical problems. Fabio Fasola, one of the first to go out injured. There will be many more to follow. Well, this day really did sort out the men from the boys. Alfie Cox, the South African. He said he was going to feature. He certainly did. 3rd on the day behind Kindergartner. Gian Roma just getting the drop on the pair of them, finishing the 230 kilometres in 2 hours, 14:07, and they were the 1-2-3 overall as well. Yes, Roma saying it was a stage of rocks, very hard indeed. Around the 30-kilometre mark, he caught up with Kindergartner and went for it, he said. And he was to fall after striking a rock. It jammed in his rear brake, but very pleased he was too. Others were having a much worse time of things. Mechanical trouble starting to rear its ugly head. Well, as some failed, others gained. Kleinschmidt was to become the first woman ever to lead the Dakar overall. She wasn't holding back. She was gunning for victory, and that's what she got. Secret, she said, no punctures. Fast and controlled, you've got to avoid sliding. The weakest point of the tire is the tire wall. You hit the rock side on, you're in trouble. Well, Matsuoka, she said, had no punctures either. Matsuoka 2nd on the day ahead of Schlesser. Vieto 4th. Kleinschmidt delighted, as you can see. Leader overall. 2nd place in those standings. Matsuoka ahead of Schlesser. Vieto 4th, knocking on the door, as well as Fontenay. Here's the Schlessermobile. It's been adapted specifically for this rally. You never see anything like that on the roads. So successful. Schlesser upsetting the Mitsubishis. The only man really to do so at this stage. Defending champion Jean-Pierre Fontenay, 7th on the day. All the smiles reserved for the leaders. Onwards then to stage 4. Cars, bikes, trucks, quads, all sorts of vehicles. Moving on. So time to move on further south, heading into Mauritania, a 451-kilometre special. A rude awakening for some who'd never been on the Dakar before. Destination, Bir-Mogrin, an old French Foreign Legion fort, literally in the middle of nowhere. Well, it was a tough day, even for the eventual winner on the bikes, Oscar Gallardo. He broke a wheel, and poor old Bernd Nutoft, further down the field in the BMW, had to give him his. So victory for Gallardo. Sainz, his BMW teammate, was third, split by Meoni. Gallardo knew he'd been lucky.
Muy deprisa y en
Yeah, he
repostaje
says,
he
bad
visto que la
news
rueda se
for
me
my
había roto.
teammate.
De ir tan rápido se ha
Nutoft.
calentado y se ha roto.
The rear wheel of mine, though, completely smashed on the rocks. And we made the change. It's lucky to be in such a good team, he said. He really came to my rescue. Effectively, though, that's what the Dakar is all about. You have to look after the leader. A measured performance from Fabrizio Meoni. He said that's what's required if you're going to win the Dakar. Sainz, third place, good enough to put him second behind Gallardo. BMW's 1 and 2 overall. Loser on the day, Zergon Zitzevitz. He won the prologue and the opening stage on that prologue course, pushing too hard, and you saw the result. Well, Salvador Servia, not singing for his supper, singing for his brother. Out in front, Jose Maria Servia. 2:06 in the buggy, and victory enough to put him second place overall, ahead of Jean-Louis Schlesser, the man who built his car. Yeah, Jean-Louis third on the day. A good day for the buggies, as it was for Jutta Kleinschmidt and co-driver Tina Turner. Still top, still the best overall. Yes, the drama, not only on the roads, but also in the backdrop. The beautiful scenery of Mauritania. Others focused on more pressing matters. Fontenay, one of those on the day, suffering one of the many, many punctures that terrorized them. Absolutely impossible, he says. And it was for so many. And so stage 5, leaving Bir-Mogrin, once again southwards, the special 625 kilometers, Attard, the destination. So an early start, and indeed the first mass starts of the Dakar on this, the longest special of this year's rally. It was a day that promised many changes in the bike class. Sadly, for Spaniard Juan Roma, it wasn't to be him featuring on the day. Yet another injury on a long list that was simply getting longer. Dunes and rocks to cope with on the day. Jordi Acaron's the man most adept at picking his way through the rough stuff. Heinz Kindergartner on his tail, and second place for him, good enough for fourth overall. It was Alfie Cox on the KTM, and the two BMWs still in the driving seat overall. Richard Sainz, third on the day, ahead of Gallardo. Cox fifth. We were settling down to real racing, and real accidents as well. A match start too for the cars. Bursting for the horizon. You've got to get out of the dust as far ahead as quickly as possible. That's the idea. And the Schlesser buggies heading off beautifully. Their speed on the flat, there for all to see. But the match start threw up problems. It threw up dirt, dust and rocks as well, taking out the windscreen of Fontenay. Ahead of him, Miguel Prieto had other difficulties, stuck in the soft stuff while leading. Kenji Shinazuka in another Mitsubishi, taking advantage, winning the day and bringing himself back in the frame in fourth.
Very, very difficult stage, and also very, very dangerous, because if speed is too high, easy to run, but very, very difficult stage. But we are lucky, so we are happy.
Happy indeed, as was Kleinschmidt, who finished third on the day behind Prieto and stayed the leader overall ahead of Serbia and Schlesser. Yes, making it look easy as others suffered in the soft sand. Punctures as well for many. A hellish day, and there were more to come. Everybody had a different story to tell about their trials and tribulations. These drivers say the engine's broken. 10 hours we've been stuck out there. They finally had to give up at 4 in the morning. Hard on the big ones and small alike. The trucks faring particularly badly. This gentleman saying 17 tons is just too heavy when you've only got 4 wheels in there. Well, the doctor says this rider wants to abandon, but I've told him he's got to carry on. He'll feel better if he does. Sound advice for Pascal Faure. He got back on, he says he's going to finish. For others, their Dakar already over. Some stuck in the sand for a further 2 days. And so, stage 6 in the offing. Attar to Tajika, staying in Mauritania. The special today, 458 kilometers in all. Well, if you thought the injury list was bad, it was suddenly getting an awful lot worse. Heinz Kindergartner out of fuel twice, got angry, tried to catch up with the leaders, made some big mistakes. He said he didn't know much about the accident. He came to, and Schilcher helped him back onto his bike. But there was a lack of feeling in his hand, he said. It was a worry, to say the very least. And he decided to call it a day. So Kindergartner, the biggest scalp so far, taken by the dunes on the Dakar. Well, as always, bad luck for some was good luck for others. Jaroslav Katrinak, he was out there and he was making waves amongst the dunes. In hot pursuit, Thierry Magnaldi, but Katrinak was not about to be caught on this day. Magnaldi content with second place. Katrinak up in the rankings. Oscar Gallardo was down there as well, behind Alfie Cox. Cox up to third, Gallardo topping the standings overall. And it was a great day for BMW. 1 and 2. They seem to be entrenched there. Psyched. Doing enough to stay in touch. Well, the Schleschermobiles were the ones to watch once again. The wide open spaces, dancing over the dunes and impressing everybody. Jose Maria Serbia, Jean-Louis Schlesser, 1 and 2. Taking control of the race and leading the rankings overall. Kleinschmidt, she led, the first woman ever to do so in the Dakar, but the dunes finally caught up with her as well. Down to third in the rankings, 14 minutes and 19 off the pace overall. Miguel Prieto, third on the day, the closest Mitsubishi to the Schlessermobiles. And yes, if you're wondering, they do call these roads in Mauritania. Well, Serbia said he had a hard but a very good day. Suspension has been excellent, he said. A rough and bumpy ride, smoothed out. Everything's in very good shape for tomorrow, he says. Perfect. Happy to go on. Another man doing well, Luc Alphon. You may have heard that name before, of course. Former champion skier and topping his class in T1. And so to stage 7, leaving Mauritania, bound for Nioro in Mali. A day of heartbreak for many. A 434-kilometer special responsible. The lonely figure of Oscar Gallardo. Walking out of the desert, his bike left in the sand. He says he has the same battery as everyone else on this rally, and his is the only one that's failed on it. Started the day as leader, ended it as an also round. Very little he could do about it, just a technical thing. You've just got to accept it. Well, his loss was his teammate's gain. BMW still in there, and Richard Sainz finishing 4th on the day and taking over at the top of the standings overall. Thierry Magnaldi had a great day. It was a good day for KTM all round. He home 3rd, ahead of Taininen, the Finn. Top of the day, Fabrizio Meoni. Pacing himself well, because that's what you've got to do to win it. A day of mixed blessings as well in the Schlesser buggies. Jose Marie Servia getting stuck, starting the day as leader and losing out. Mitsubishi's taking advantage throughout the day. Prieto was to win it, but heartbreak for Servia. Well, Jean-Louis Schlesser himself was having a much better time of things. But navigation, the problem for all concerned on this other day in the devilish dunes. The man who picked his way best of all was Prieto. Schlesser close behind, as was Kleinschmidt, still on the pace. She 2nd overall behind Schlesser. Prieto's victory taking him to 3rd in the standings. Well, truly this was the navigation stage, he said. We're out there ahead for 420 kilometers, and Dominique Serias, his co-driver, through the Neger Pass, he said he was absolutely magnificent, and without him, couldn't have done it at all. So after 3 days of hell in the dunes, the longest stage of the Dakar ahead, a special of 460 kilometers, a liaison of 540, heading for Bobo Dioulasso in Burkina Faso. Well, in the end, the cars were to make the race. Hubert Oriol announcing that the bikes were to treat the entire 1,000 kilometers as a liaison. No racing for them, and it was a blessed relief. So just the cars, and navigation problems all over again. It was a dance. Well, in the end, it was a question of who had the best navigator. And Prieto, with Dominique Cerise on board, was heading for victory. His 3rd, indeed, of the Dakar. And pulling Prieto up into 2nd place behind Jean-Louis Schlesser. Schlesser's day, not a good one. Finishing 7th, but still leading overall, ahead of Prieto and Kleinschmidt. Well, no bikes, but there were trucks, as always, every day throughout this Dakar. The monsters of the sand were going for it. Well, the dominant makes Kamaz, Tatra, Ivakov on day 8. Moskovsky leading them in ahead of Lepre and Biazion. Lepre at the top of the pile overall. And so to Bobo Dioulasso in Burkina Faso, a rest day, well earned by one and all. Still an awful long way to go. Half the Dakar remains. The rest day over all too soon for riders and drivers alike. Machines mended and minds fighting to refocus on the job in hand. The second half of the 21st Dakar Rally. Stage 9 was supposed to end in Gao, but security worries meant that Mopti would see the day's finale. So farewell, Bobo Dioulasso. A 304-kilometre special was the rejig start, and navigation problems with the new map there for all to see. But it was Alfie Cox who was to take his first stage win in fine style. Even he was lost 5 times on the day.
You know, today was a lot of bushes, very big thorns, and not really the Dakar because sandy tracks, but exactly like we have at home in Botswana. And I felt at home. It was great for me. It was, you know, I'm used to that type of riding, and it was perfect.
Yes, and an almost perfect day for KTM. 1 and 2. Carlo Di Gavardo, the Chilean, second on the day, 5 minutes off Cox's pace. And then came the Yamaha of Carlos Sotelo. Just seconds adrift and ahead of Richard Sainz, the overall leader. Yes, the BMW rider saying he had to take it easy through the villages and his time would have been a lot better had he not been watching out for children, animals and mules. Thierry Magnaldi was 5th behind Sainz. Magnaldi second overall, 6 minutes and 43 off the pace. And this man, Mioni, number 1, 3rd overall after finishing 6th. Yes, fond memories of Burkina Faso fading all too soon. Yes, 6 times winner of the Dakar on the bikes, Stefan Pederhansel. He swapped for a Nissan this time, and he's doing rather well. 5th on the day. 7 minutes and 49 off the winning pace. He enjoyed himself, he says. I like specials like this. Not too many stones, quite technical. There were navigation difficulties, he said. It was very amusing. Tough through the villages, though, he says. You had to slow down for everybody. They got a good time, and not too many errors, he says. Well, the Mitsubishis had a good day. Kenji Shinazuka, second fastest. 7 minutes and 4 seconds off the pace and up to 4th overall. Jutta Kleinschmidt, though, was having more difficulties than she was used to. When others were having punctures earlier in the race, she'd got through okay this time. There were 2 for her. She finished 9th. Miguel Prieto, 3 stage wins for him. 3rd today, 2nd overall ahead of Kleinschmidt. But still 9 minutes and 25 off the leader. Jean-Louis Schlesser. Yes, coming home in 3 hours 43:08 to take the stage and increasing his lead overall. No problems for others, of course. Thierry Delavan suffering more than most. A bent steering rod for him. So on to stage 10, and those security problems still causing havoc. The diversion to Mopti and a very long 1,000-kilometre stage was in the offing to Timbuktu, which would have seen some of the already depleted motorcyclists arriving at 3 a.m. Too late to contest the following stage. So Hubert Oriol, race director, made the announcement that for the first time in Dakar history, the bikes and the riders would be transported by aeroplane. So an unexpected rest day for the bikers. Popular with some, not so with others. Fuel drained from the machines, loaded aboard for safety reasons. Bike leader Sainz said, "It's lucky for me, but also for the amateurs. Starting at 3 in the morning and arriving in the middle of the night, it would have been impossible for some of them, just too hard." So he says the decision is a wise one. Well, for those pursuing, like Mione, it was a different story. He said, "The Dakar is not about flying, it's about racing on the ground. The decision to go by plane is not good for me. It means one less special to catch sight." He says, "But I can understand the reasons why the decision was made." So time for the riders to get some extra sleep, and for those more alert to look down and watch the race take place with the cars.
Perfect day, lovely day today.
John Deacon more than delighted with the rest. And so a pleasant day for those on 2 wheels, and an arduous one, to say the least, for those on 4 or more. Yes, just 46 cars still in the race, and perhaps a few less by the day's end. ...600 kilometers plus of liaison, followed by more than 400 of special, and Jean-Pierre Fontenay was putting the foot down. So unlucky in the first half of the Dakar. It was to be his day. Fontenay finishing 4 minutes and 15 seconds, clear of Prieto, putting himself 7th in the overall ranking, but still over 6.5 hours off the pace. He may not be challenging for position overall, but when it comes to racing day by day, Fontenay still has the passion. Well, others as well, of course, with points to prove. Prieto himself, 3 stage wins already under his belt, and second today, ahead of the leader, Mr. Schlesser. Well, a great deal of respect for this vehicle over the many years that it's contested the Dakar, and that remained intact on the day. Schlesser, 3rd fastest, ahead of Shinazuka. It was Mitsubishi's 4, 5 and 6, with Matsuoka and Souza finishing ahead of the Nissan of Serbia. And what of Kleinschmidt? Well, her luck finally running out. 20 minutes lost time due to a damaged wheel stuck behind traffic. She finished 10th and fell down over 3/4 of an hour off Schlesser's pace. Overall, still 3rd. As for the trucks, the big boys, well, part of their journey was by water. A beautiful sight in the Niger Delta. And so it was back to Mauritania, a special of 539 kilometers. Gone was the greenery. It was desert conditions once more. Yes, and make or break time, particularly on the bikes. So many riders still in with a chance. And one man in particular showed the rest the way. Alfie Cox has navigation difficulties, but when the road is clear, he's the fastest man there is. And so it proved on the day. He finished in 6 hours, 4:56. Well, unlucky for others, Kari Tianen, the Finn. Gearbox trouble. He spoke to us.
It was 70 kilometers before the end. My gearbox went broken. I lost the 4th gear. And I crashed also because of this, and I was really scared that I can't finish the stage.
Thierry Magnaldi was also out to put as much space between himself and Sainz as possible on the day. He 3rd fastest, ahead of Bioni, the man wearing the #1. Great balance, great poise. He said he had to take his time. A measured performance. 4th in front of Sainz, the leader. But the gap at the top, just 2 minutes and 1 second to Thierry Magnaldi. The battle on 4 wheels, predictable of course. Schlesser against Prieto, the 2 men at the top, out to outdo each other. Well, both had their problems. Schlesser, it was a puncture and then stuck in camel grass. Prieto took advantage, but difficulties for him as well. Overheating shock absorbers meant that he finished the day 30 seconds adrift of Schlesser, the gap widening then at the top. Kenjiro Shinazuka driving for pride. He won the day. Stays over 2 hours off the pace.
Only 26 kilo, we don't have a piste, just off-road. Then after the off-road, we had the piste, just for the piste. So I think piste of last years. So just follow the piste, no navigation, nothing at all.
Shinazuka 1 minute and 6 seconds clear of Jose Maria Servia. He had puncture problems, but a quick change meant that he was to finish second ahead of Schlesser. Kleinschmidt, fourth on the day, ahead of Prieto. Enough to stay in touch, but 45 minutes off the pace. Another battle going on, the T1 class. Luc Alfond up against Jean-Pierre Strugo. Strugo led at the beginning of the day by 13 seconds. By the day's end, Alfond was on top once again. In the trucks, Moskovski blocking the Hummer, not intentionally. Moskovski leading the trucks, the Hummers playing catch-up in the tough terrain. So on to stage 12 of the Dakar, and time running out for those jockeying for position. Neymar all the way to Ticit, a special of 490 kilometers. Well, through the majestic Elephant Pass today, Hubert Auriol, as always, the race director, on hand to oversee proceedings. And a dramatic day it turned out to be, as always. John Deacon giving us a wheelie to get us underway. Well, this is the day that KTM really had to get team tactics sorted out if they were to catch Richard Sainz, the leader. Well, they failed to do that. Everyone seemed to be together in the morning, including Sainz. Nobody blocked him, however, and he got the jump on them at the death. Sainz was heading for victory this day. Yes, we were all together, he says, by the time we took on board fuel. Afterwards, we left together, but in the last 90 kilometers, I just opened it up and took it. Sainz extending his lead. Meoni, the nearest man to him on the day, 1 minute and 44 seconds off the pace, securing his place in third. Magnaldi, the real loser, finishing the day 2 minutes and 40 adrift. The gap extending for Sainz at the top. Alfie Cox, the tough guy, came home after a troubled day with a sore arm in sixth, fourth overall. The cars, no doubt about the picture of the day. A clash between Prieto and Schlesser. And there were arguments to follow, I can tell you. Schlesser was damaged at this point, his reflation system shot, but he was to get back later, as was Jose Maria Servia. 1 and 2, the Schlesser mobiles. Mitsubishi having a rough time. Prieto himself got stuck in the dunes, and at the arrival it was Schlesser that led them in. And he said, Prieto hit me, very strong. Well, no problem, they said. Prieto said, what do you mean, no problem? He hit me. Well, they managed to patch it up afterwards, thankfully. All smiles. 20 minutes separating those two at the top. Kleinschmidt, 1.5 hours off the pace after a disastrous day, finishing 46 minutes down in seventh. And as always, a mixed day for Shinazuka. He always blows hot or cold. Well, he was to finish third on the day, fourth behind Kleinschmidt overall. It's time running out for those hoping to get a jump on the leaders. Matsuoka finishing sixth. De La Verne, the highest placed Nissan, fifth on the day. And so to stage 13, and it was to prove to be unlucky for some. Ticit to Attar, a special of 579 kilometers, and it was a case of the day after the night before. 1 motorcycle, 3 quads, 12 cars and 7 trucks held up by bandits at gunpoint. Race director Hubert Auriol made the announcement in the morning. Many people very shaken. Thankfully, nobody hurt. But the vehicles were missing. They'd been left alone in the desert. So it's a case of look and see. The tracks were obvious, and just by a bivouac, most of the vehicles, all bar 4 Toyota Land Cruisers, were recovered. Well, the Army and the Air Force were out in force, looking for the others. They were not to be found. And so to the day's stage, and a problem of focus, perhaps, for the competitors. Thierry Magnaldi was to win the day in 7 hours, 56 minutes. He was trying to put as much space, of course, between himself and the leader, Sainct. His overall lead reduced, others in the game as well. Acheron's third on the day, ahead of an extremely brave Alfie Cox. Cox arm trouble, causing him difficulty again. It swelled to the size of a football. They drained half a pint from him. He carried on to finish 4th. Meoni also in difficulty. In the dunes, lost his fuel cap, had to go slowly. But nobody had worse luck than Tiernan. Oil spilling onto the motor. The flames began. He tried to put it out. It was ablaze. His race at an end. So victims on the bikes. Victims the night before. And it was tough as well on the leaders in the cars. Schlesser stuck in the dunes. Got a tow from José Servia. Then Servia got stuck. Got a tow from Schlesser. Helping each other. As always, the buggies featuring once again. Yes, Prieto and Shinazuka were in the chase. They got lost. Navigation problems as ever. Prieto third behind Schlesser. Shinazuka 4th ahead of Serbia. Jutta Kleinschmidt, though, was back on form. Her luck finally returning. She won the day, 8 hours 43.56, 1 minute and 22 clear of the leader. Yes, Schlesser's lead up to 26 minutes. Clear of the chasing pack. Prieto, of course, heading them. A difficult day after a very difficult night. Well, on board with Pescarolo in the Nissan. He says the car was very heavy on the day, filled to the brim with fuel, just in case they got stuck in the dunes. Spare parts on board as well. He was 500 kilos overweight, and he had to be. All changes well in the trucks. Lopre, the new leader, after a great day. The same couldn't be said for Moskovski. Stuck in the dunes, losing top spot. And so to stage 14, the last real Dakar stage for those who could pose a challenge to do so. A 433-kilometer special from Attar to Nouakchott. Well, it was KTM's day, or it was supposed to be. Their chance to close down BMW, but their luck ran out once again. Both Meoni and Magnaldi in trouble, mechanically and physically. Well, Magnaldi stuck in the dunes. He was to fall very heavily after hitting a stone as well, damaging his abdomen. Well, he was carrying that injury, but it wasn't helping his strength. He was stuck in the dunes as well. His day, a miserable one. It was a very stony start, he said. The bike hit one of the rocks and threw me into the air, and I fell on a large stone myself, badly bruised my abdomen, felt very bad indeed. It was a hard knock on my right side. Well, hard knocks elsewhere in the KTM team as well. Meoni, he thought he'd broken his foot. In the end, it turned out to be a severe strain. Giovanni Sala did take the stage ahead of Meoni and Cox. Richard Sainct, though, was the man who was having all the luck. Yes, the BMW leader, finishing well clear of Magnaldi and extending his lead to 3 minutes and 38 seconds overall. Yes, KTM by far and away the most popular bike on this rally. BMW and Sainct, a thorn in their side. This was last chance for Mitsubishi and Prieto as well. Schlesser and Servia in their sights. The buggies dominating once again. Navigation problems for one and all. Prieto suffering. The dunes hampering the progress of the buggies as well. They were to help each other. And Schlesser was looking confident. Defending champion Jean-Pierre Fontenay enjoying himself in the second half of the Dakar. He finished second behind Jose Marie Servia. Schlesser was third. Navigation problems once again. Nobody really knowing where they were going in parts of this race. Some had better luck than others. Kleinschmidt had a nightmare. Crucially, Schlesser finished ahead of Prieto, extending his lead again. Elsewhere, the battle for the T1 class was going the way of Luc Alphonse. And so to the penultimate stage of the Dakar. From Nouakchott, heading south with a 151-kilometre special into Senegal and Saint-Louis. Well, all hearts went out to Meoni. He was pushing, as always, to challenge Sainz, to close the gap on him and Magnaldi. A blown engine, ending his Dakar completely. He said after the broken foot, and now this, I can't believe my luck. I just want to go home and be with my family. That's all that matters now. Well, it really put a grey air on the day. Sainz, as measured and as controlled as ever, out in front and heading for victory. Here's a stage win for Sainz. 4 minutes and 9 seconds clear overall by the day's end of Thierry Magnaldi. And a great effort by Sotelo. Brought him home in third place on the day and fifth in the overall rankings. Yes, it was all talk about Meoni in the KTM team. Alfie Cox, up to third in the rankings, said he wouldn't have wished Meoni's luck on anybody. Well, Fontenay may have won the day for Mitsubishi. The sight of Prieto finishing 14th was not a happy one for them. And Nissans, 4 of them in the top 6, including that of Stefan Pederhansel, the man who swapped 2 wheels for 4. Delighted with his day. Very beautiful day, he said. Very happy with second place behind the defending champion. It's a beautiful country, very different stage. He'd enjoyed himself. Schlesser, third on the day, well clear of Prieto. He knew he'd got it in the bag. Even time to enjoy the scenery. Yes, a relaxed atmosphere for one and all towards the end of this stage. It was cruising time on the beaches of Senegal. In the T1 class, Luc Alphonse, so far ahead, he was able to take time out for a dip. He was also waiting for Strugo, linking hands with a man he'd done battle with. Lepre had won the trucks despite some problems, finishing well clear of Moskovski, who'd done so much, so often. And so to Saint-Louis to await the finale. Yes, destination Dakar and the parade. 240 kilometers of liaison and a beautiful, heart-shaped 20-kilometer special. Well, it was to prove to be a dramatic day, at least on the bikes. Sainz led them in. Parade, none of it. Magnaldi was out to win, and there were errors at the beginning. The bikes went the wrong way, led by John Deacon. Magnaldi took a shortcut. That deemed ungentlemanly, and sadly, the day was annulled. Yesterday's results stood Sainz the winner. Magnaldi upset about the error, and indeed claimed innocence. He said they were very nervous at the start. Everyone seemed to miss the turn, go the wrong way. I just tried my best, rejoined the riders. By the day's end, they decided to cancel it. Well, cancel it they may have done, but the rally won true and proper by this man. Richard Sainz on the BMW. He left KTM to join this team, a small outfit that suited him perfectly. A dream come true, he says. He just hasn't realised what's happened yet. Well, it soon became apparent as the thousands crammed round to hail the champion. Well, the cars were also there. They'd watched the bikes go. More orderly this time. The marshals in the correct places, making sure they stuck to the track. Trouble on the day for Salvador Servia, but he won it anyway. But the real champion, of course, was a man in a buggy. His name, Schlesser. Yes, he named the cars after himself. Jean-Louis Schlesser, taking the applause and very happy with his work. He says, I haven't quite realised yet. I'm here with all my friends, my brother. It's magnificent, he says. Yes, he's been here 11 times, he said, and this is the first time he's won. Well, there are other happy people as well, not least Miguel Prieto, and of course, Kleinschmidt and Tina Turner. The celebrations went on and on. Alphonse, the winner of the T1 class, and the trucks, Le Pré.